911, what's your emergency?
911, what's your emergency?
The murder of Rebecca Hoover. On August 2nd, 2020, what began as another violent argument inside a family home in New Albany, Indiana, ended with the murder of 50-year-old Rebecca Ruth Hoover. What happened to Rebecca was not at the hands of a violent stranger or a desperate burglar breaking in, nor was it some kind of shocking accident that couldn't have been predicted or prevented. No. The man responsible for what happened is her husband, Judson Hoover. Afterwards, instead of reporting what had happened, he spent the following weeks trying to erase the crime by hiding Rebecca's body and convincing everyone that she had simply walked away from her family. His plan unraveled after the couple's 8-year-old son revealed a horrifying secret that he had carried for nearly a month. Rebecca and Judson Hoover had been married since 2008. Together they were raising 3 children, including 8-year-old fraternal twins and a younger daughter. From the outside, they appeared to be an ordinary family, but court records later revealed that their marriage had become increasingly violent over the years. Police had been called to the home several times between 2017 and 2020 because of domestic disturbances. Rebecca had repeatedly reported that her husband physically assaulted her. In separate incidents, she accused him of hitting her, choking her, and SAING her. One of the most serious incidents occurred earlier that year when Judson Hoover was arrested and charged with domestic battery and strangulation. Those criminal charges were still pending when Rebecca was killed. Despite the history of violence, the couple continued living together while the legal process moved forward. On the evening of August 2nd, 2020, another argument broke out inside the family's home. This time the violence escalated to murder. According to evidence later presented in court, the confrontation moved into the basement. Their 8-year-old son witnessed what happened next. The child later told investigators that he saw his father repeatedly stomp on Rebecca's head while she was lying on the basement floor. Even after she stopped moving, he said his father struck her again. Medical evidence later confirmed that Rebecca suffered numerous blunt force injuries to her head and torso. The injuries were so severe that they caused her death inside the home. Jason did not call 911 or seeking medical assistance instead. Judson Hoover immediately began covering up the crime. He moved Rebecca's body into the garage before placing it inside a large freezer. Over the next several days, he developed a plan to permanently conceal her remains. Hoover rented a storage unit in New Albany and transported the freezer there. At some point afterward, he dismembered Rebecca's body by removing her legs so that her remains would fit inside a 55-gallon barrel. Prosecutors later described these actions as deliberate efforts to prevent her body from being discovered and to delay the investigation. While hiding Rebecca's remains, Hoover carefully created the appearance that she had voluntarily disappeared. He told family members and others that she had left the house after an argument. He claimed she had gone out to meet friends and had never returned. He took the deception even further by filing for divorce after Rebecca was already dead. During the divorce court proceedings, Hoover falsely testified that she had abandoned the family. He successfully obtained temporary custody of their children and even secured a protective order against Rebecca despite knowing she was no longer alive. These actions allowed him to continue controlling the family situation while investigators were still trying to determine what had happened. Rebecca's mother became increasingly concerned after she could no longer contact her daughter. Eventually, she reported Rebecca missing. Police began investigating and searched the Hoover residence. Although they found nothing immediately proving Rebecca had been murdered, they continued gathering information while attempting to locate her. The investigation changed dramatically on August 27, 2020. One of Rebecca and Judson's 8-year-old sons spoke with a school guidance counselor and revealed that he had witnessed his father kill his mother nearly 4 weeks earlier. The counselor immediately reported the disclosure to child protection authorities who contacted law enforcement. Armed with this new information, investigators returned to the Hoover home for another search. This time they discovered blood evidence inside the basement along with signs that portions of the area had recently been cleaned and repaired. The condition of the basement suggested someone had attempted to remove evidence of a violent crime. Police interviewed Judson Hoover again. Although he denied responsibility, investigators prevented him from returning to the house after questioning him. Instead of remaining under the radar, Hoover made another move that helped investigators with the case. During the early morning hours, surveillance cameras captured him renting a minivan. Investigators later learned he drove to the New Albany storage facility where Rebecca's remains had been hidden. He removed the barrel containing her body and transported it across state lines to a second storage unit in Louisville, Kentucky. The surveillance footage documented each step of the transfer. Detectives reviewed the recordings, tracked the new storage unit, and obtained a search warrant. When officers arrived at the Louisville facility, they immediately detected the odor of decomposition coming from the unit. Inside, they discovered the barrel containing Rebecca's remains. Due to the condition of the body, after several weeks of concealment, investigators relied on Rebecca's distinctive tattoos to positively identify her. Following the discovery, police questioned Hoover once again. This time, he confessed to killing his wife. Prosecutors charged Judson Hoover with murder. Given the overwhelming evidence against him, including the testimony of his own child, the surveillance footage, the forensic evidence, and his confession, the case did not proceed to a full jury trial. Hoover entered a guilty plea to murder. During the court proceedings, one reason given for the plea was his desire to prevent his young son from having to testify publicly about witnessing the killing. Under the plea agreement, prosecutors agreed not to pursue additional charges or seek life imprisonment without parole or the death penalty. However, the judge retained full authority to determine the appropriate sentence for the murder conviction. During sentencing, prosecutors described not only the brutality of the killing, but also the extensive efforts Hoover made afterward to conceal the crime. The court considered several aggravating factors. Rebecca was murdered in the family home. One of the couple's children witnessed the attack. Hoover filed and was granted a divorce while knowing Rebecca was dead, misled the family court, and attempted to create the false impression that Rebecca had willingly abandoned her children. The judge also considered Hoover's documented history of domestic violence. Rebecca had reported multiple assaults before her death, and Hoover was already facing pending criminal charges involving violence against her when the murder occurred. Those prior incidents demonstrated an escalating pattern of abuse that ultimately ended in homicide. Hoover was convicted of the charges, pleading guilty and admitting to his disturbing and devastating actions, concluded that the seriousness of the crime and his calculated efforts to hide it far outweighed any mitigating circumstances. Judson Hoover was sentenced to 65 years in the Indiana Department of Correction, the maximum sentence available under the plea agreement. Hoover later appealed his sentence, arguing that the trial court should have given greater weight to his guilty plea and that his sentence was excessive. The Indiana Court of Appeals reviewed the case and rejected those arguments. The appellate judges concluded that the trial court had acted within its discretion and emphasized the extreme violence of the murder, the elaborate cover-up, the emotional trauma inflicted on the couple's children, and Hoover's attempts to manipulate both law enforcement and the family court after Rebecca's death. The conviction and 65-year sentence were affirmed, bringing the criminal case to a close. The murder of Rebecca Hoover remains a stark example of escalating domestic violence ending in homicide. The investigation demonstrated how forensic evidence, surveillance footage, and the courage of a young child who finally revealed what he had witnessed combined to expose a violent crime and the carefully planned cover-up. Without that disclosure, Rebecca's disappearance could have remained unsolved for far longer. Instead, the evidence established exactly what had happened inside the Hoover home and ultimately led to Judson K. Hoover's conviction for murder, giving a small comfort of justice to Rebecca's loved ones, family, friends, and the community as they are left to grieve Rebecca's life being taken from her as well as from everyone else who loved her.